See, I'd like to do this show, but I have microfractured my esophagus. And the microfracture, which is just here, and I'm not looking for my comeuppance, and it happened rather involuntarily as I was chewing on popcorn last night. But yeah, I got this little slit. It went right, that popcorn thing. So I've microfractured it, which, and for now, we're gonna call it a lower neck injury somewhere in there. Anyway, but anyway.
Can I ask you whether or not Subban gave you that popcorn?
No, but I was eating it when I choked on it when I saw what he did, which I couldn't believe he would do. You picked the right game to go to, Kevin.
Oh, highly entertaining game. And the oddity of that game, well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, let's get into it. Here we go. Let's start the show.
If P.K. Subban was a football player, he'd be a slashing running back. But
oh, boy.
Yes.
Boy, it's such good stuff. All right, April 16th. Man, we've only progressed one day since yesterday. It feels like we've been through 3 days. All right, here we go. Ready? Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday. It's April 16th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund. Sorry, got to switch the camera there. I am Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. But before I do that, I gotta play you some Monique, who's a listener in she's awesome. She's a listener in Canada. I'm assuming French Canadian Canada, since her name is Monique. Maybe that's just a wrong thing to assume. Maybe that makes me a hater. I don't know. But this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you here that I'm going to show you. She came up with this awesome remix for the intro of the show. So I wanted to play it for you guys because this is so cool. Ready?
Even before I hear it, I want to use it.
Here we go. And I am Eklund, and welcome to the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz. And I am Eklund, and welcome to the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz. And I am Eklund, and welcome to the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast where we come to you every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. or thereabouts to talk about the hockey world. Every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. or thereabouts to talk about the hockey world. And I am Eklund, and welcome to the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz. And I am Eklund, and welcome to the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz. And I am Eklund, and welcome to the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast where we come to you every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. or thereabouts to talk about the hockey world.
Well, at least we know you're Eklund.
I think I know why you like that.
Right. They keep saying it.
But I actually do like it.
Isn't it pretty cool?
Yeah. I give it an A.
If the folks out there are willing to do music and graphics for us, we certainly will not pay them. But we would love for them to do it. And it would be fantastic. We would absolutely welcome anything. That is amazing, Monique. Thank you so much.
And that really is impressive.
We'd certainly welcome it for free. Thank you.
We would certainly welcome it anytime. So let's get right down to it. We're not going to talk about anything that happened last night. Of course, we're sorry. We got to get into the games tonight, but we're gonna do this show. We're gonna be out of here at 4 because we all have other things to do. But let's start here. Okay, so we're gonna start off with Montreal and Ottawa, two teams that love each other, two cities that have a long-standing relationship with each other, and two places where all the Ottawa Senators fans, all their parents were Montreal Canadiens fans. So let's just play this out as it comes down. We expected nothing but sportsmanship and upstandingness, and this is what we got last night was all that and more. First of all, both the goalies couldn't stop a thing. Secondly, and they were the main story in the whole thing, right? Secondly, and more importantly, I'm going to say most importantly, the Canadiens did indeed win the game. But beyond that, P.K. Subban, the slash heard around the world, or at least around the internet today, around Twitter for crying out loud. And as we like to say on HockeyBuzz.com, because of all the traffic, the slash that keeps on giving. But this was crazy. This was absolutely crazy. Kevin, your thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, not unexpected that there'd be bad blood, certainly. Cameron's threat after the game just sort of escalates the tension beyond belief, and It seems like they're giving him a free pass on it. I thought it was suspension worthy for sure.
Yeah.
I that we don't need that in the game, and I'm worried now about what will happen next. Will they indeed go after the star player on the Montreal Canadiens? It seems to me they'd go after Subban.
Well, he's the star player, right?
Right, yeah. So
I mean, that's one of the Ottawa Senators fans said, yeah, well, what star player do they have that we can even go, yeah, it's Subban. It's Subban, obviously.
yeah, it's really Carey Price, but
it is Carey Price. That's true.
Well, I was going to say Chris Neal could come into the lineup and do his best Chris Kreider imitation. But, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the thing that's most disturbing about the incident last night is what Brian Murray said this morning, where he said that Subban apparently was threatening, and maybe threatening is not the key, is the right word, but it was warning Stone that something was coming, or that was going to happen. I assume if he goes to the front of the net or whatever, and then a few minutes later you get the slash right on the wrist and the micro fracture, as Ack was saying. I mean, it was a phenomenally entertaining and emotional game. I think this is carryover between these two teams from a couple years ago. If you remember, Lars Eller getting leveled by Eric Gryba, and in the series during the lockout playoffs.
Right. But Lars Eller, Eric Gryba, PK Subban.
No, I know. I'm just saying. I'm just saying the bad blood act. I'm just saying the fact that Gryba and Eller are both on their respective teams. These teams play each other 5 times a year. They don't like each other, and it's going to get amped up. And the thing is, though, Cameron evaded any kind of fine from the league based on the wording that he mentioned, but I'm sure it's in the minds of the Ottawa Senators players that, okay, you went after our hottest scorer. Now, everybody's got a target on their back. Are they going to go after Plekanec? Are they going to go after Subban? Are they going to go after Price? And if they do, what are the ramifications from the league? If the league goes out and suspends whoever attacks one of their players a couple games, there's not an equal playing field here because Subban got suspended nothing.
Well, this is the timeline that kind of concerns me, Kevin, and what he's saying there is exactly right. What Mike's saying is right, because the NHL came out and said they weren't going to do anything before the Ottawa Senators told everybody he had a microfracture. And then a lot of people are saying, well, maybe since suspensions and this is the old debate, right? Suspensions versus how much should it be suspended more if he's hurt, if he's gone for the season. If we knew last night that his wrist was broken and he was out for the year, there's a suspension here, definitely, in my mind, and that's why I have issues with this. I think there's something wrong here.
Yeah, but that's the system that actually works in the legal community as well. I mean,
true.
That's because all I could think of is the quote from Winston Churchill saying, it's democracy is a terrible form of government. It just happens to be the best one we have, and
right.
That's the same thing. What we have in these cases, you have to have some measurement, some basis for comparison, and they've developed this as a precedent, saying, okay, if all of this criteria, he's hurt, there was intent, they've got it all sort of laid out, then we move in this direction, and at least it gives people some idea. Now, I think the argument would be that it's still so gray that it's hard to know, what the penalty is going to be. That to some people it just feels like they're just pulling numbers out of a hat or throwing balloons or throwing darts at balloons, and whatever pops is what you get. But I think there's really is some rhyme or reason to it. I think they do work hard at trying to sort it out, but you're never going to make both sides happy. And the point I would make about the threat is this. Gordie Howe once told me that he liked it to tell people that he was going to get them at some point, and he liked to take his time because the threat to him was worse than the actual beating. That they were always looking over their shoulder. So I guarantee you, the Canadian players will all be playing, wondering if this next moment is when they were going to face, the punishment that's going to be meted out for Stone. Because Stone, obviously, as most fans know, but maybe not everybody, Stone has been one of the, not just the best rookies, but the top most productive players since January.
Isn't he second to only Crosby since then, or something like that? There's something.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal what he's done, and he's been a huge part of their success down the stretch. This is not, even though he's not a household name, this is not, a third line performer who is now out of the lineup with the microfracture.
Yeah, I mean, with Stone out of the lineup, no one would. If we knew this ahead of the time, no one predicts the Senators to win this series. I mean, that to me that's.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that, and with everybody watching, it's gonna be hard for me to believe that someone's going to go break someone's wrist on Montreal Canadiens. Usually, when these kind of things happen, there's so many people there. Like the NHL, could send Quintal there. He'll talk to both teams. There'll be people in the press box watching, and I'm sure they're going to threaten them with massive, suspensions if anything comes to this. So I think it'll actually tone it down a little bit, I would think, from what happened in that first game.
I think they have to, and I agree. I couldn't agree more. I'm sorry this beeping thing's happening over here. I apologize for that.
I don't know whether it's going to get toned down or not. All I know is that if you saw the excellent camera work by CBC last night, they caught Subban in the walkway, basically yelling and screaming at the trainer for the Canadians, because they found out that Stone had come back on the ice. He had rolled around and writhed in pain like his arm had been chopped off, and some people thought that he was faking it or trying to draw them into a 5-minute major, and then he came back on the ice. But he played like 2 shifts and then went off, so he was trying to play in pain. It clearly wasn't them sort of sucking in Subban to get the 5-minute major. It's just a question of if he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to be able to play with a microfracture of his wrist, and if that's the case, then I'm sure it'll open the Senators up to criticism.
I mean, it didn't help the criticism that he comes back and got into a fight. Basically, I mean, there's a lot. There's so many sides to this story. I mean, that when you read both fan bases, Stone came back and he was throwing punches, and at the end of the day, Subban should be suspended for just being stupid. I mean, this was just a really dumb thing to do. And you know what I mean? Just completely out in the open. No way, shape, or mean. This guy he did something. He lost his mind and did something ridiculous. Like, I can tell you that I'm sure you'll vouch for this, Kevin. That Gordie Howe, when he threatened that he was going to get people, when he got him, he didn't get him like Subban got him.
No.
He found his time, and he found a place, and he found a way to do it that wasn't so vibrantly wide open.
Well, I will tell one story about that.
Okay.
That I've written about, that was confirmed by Bill Gadsby, who was there, and also from Gordie himself. One day, Bill Gadsby, a Hall of Famer, and Gordie Howe were roommates on the Red Wings. And away from the play, and before the era when everything was captured on video, Bill Gadsby was skating up the ice, and there was a commotion behind him, and he turned and he saw Gilles Tremblay down in a heap, and everybody gasping. And they helped him off the ice, and he was a mess. And so they got back to their room, and before they went to sleep, Bill said to Gordie, "Well, what happened down there with Tremblay?" He said, "Well," he says, "best I can figure," Gordie said, "I think I got my thumb, might have got him in the eye. I think that's what happened. I got him in the eye." And Bill said, "I thought about that, and that can happen. Your thumb gets in thing, and sometimes it, causes some issues." And so he said, the next morning we go down to breakfast, and I got the paper, and I hold it up, and I say to Gordie, "There must be some powerful thumb you got, because it says Tremblay suffers broken jaw. Will be out for the rest of the season." And now that's not the story, though. So Gordie said, "Yeah, I'm not sure how that happened." And so my question to Gordie was, why did you do that? And this is what he told me. That the year before, the Red Wings had been knocked out of the playoffs, and he had been hired as a color radio commentator So he took the same train. Now he's on there with whoever the Canadians. Yeah, the Red Wings were out.
Right.
It was the Canadians were playing someone, and he was on the train going back to Montreal, and he was watching a bridge game between some Canadian players, and he commented that Dickie Duff, who was playing against Tremblay, had made a nice play, and Tremblay said, "What's a big dumb ox like you know anything about bridge?" or something to that effect. And Gordy filed that insult away and just nodded at him. And a year later, in the playoffs, he exacted revenge. And that's the way it was done back then. Stan Mikita told me that he waited for 2 years for Gordy to exact revenge against him for something he did to Gordy, and he said it actually was the 3rd year. And he said when Gordy laid him out, he said, "Now we're even." So
Wow.
Gordy never forgot.
That's amazing. That's a great story.
The funny thing is that all this about the Subban slash has sort of buried the lead in a sense, because the Hamburglers bubble was burst last night with 4 goals in the second period. I mean, if he would have played adequately, Ottawa should have won that game. But I thought he let in 4 pretty bad goals, and I think they're going to come back with him because I think they have no choice. But if he plays like that, then it could be a short series for the Senators.
Well,
Yeah.
it's true.
That's one of the worries too everybody had, is that the pressure the pressure of facing Montreal in this big a series is far greater than anything he's done before. Far greater.
Oh yeah, far greater than anything any of those players have done before. Mainly, I mean those young players, they're all facing that, but for goalie, it's amplified, of course, and I agree. And he actually he got lucky on a couple others that he should have let in. It could have been, that game could have really, and also, but let's not, I mean, there were a lot of lucky goals on the other side too. So it was just a weird night for goals, and really that game felt more like a 6-2 game in favor of the Canadians to me than it did what it was. I mean, it felt like the Canadians had the better opportunities to me, in my opinion. I mean, but maybe I'm wrong. But at the end of the day, you're right, Mike. It does distract from it. And that, in a way, could be a good tactic. It might actually help the Hamburglar out a little bit. It might actually help Hamburg out that this happened, because people aren't looking and talking to him today and saying, and the question isn't who you're going with in the second game. The question is, all about this thing, which does bring me to the next topic of the Buffalo Sabres. Why would I? Sorry, the Chicago Blackhawks, who are saying that was a great, 4 periods you played there, Mr. Darling, but you're not back in the next game either. Kevin, you're there. This is Quenneville. This is classic coaching, obviously. He's going back with his guy. But, our job is to question it, so I'm going to question it. I'm going to say this is a bizarre move because, in my mind, in my opinion, and I'm definitely not as qualified as Joel Quenneville. I don't know what's going on in the team. I don't know all these players. But they now are playing a little bit with house money in Nashville, and they have something that actually they got inside the Predators' head with in Darling, and why not exploit that for one more game and see what happens? That's my thought on it. Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, basically my lead of last night is that it was this carpe diem moment where, he sees the day, the game, and I thought maybe the net.
Yeah.
With the play that he had last night, 42 consecutive saves, memorable saves. Joel Quenneville exhausted his vocabulary last night, talking about spectacular, phenomenal. He came up with everything he had in his arsenal to try to describe that. But in the end, he basically said what you just said, and that is, hey, Crawford's his guy. He's won a Stanley Cup. Darling's only been in 13 NHL games. He's like the Hamburglar. He rose up, but can he continue to do this? And the other element too, and I thought this was a very important statistic. Crawford had never before been pulled in a playoff game, which shows that he has some level of consistency, and Quenneville brought that up. And he said this was actually an easier decision than the one when he pulled Crawford. He had to give that some thought because Crawford's his guy. And, so I thought there was some logic to the decision. I made the case last night for both situations, basically echoing what you said, that, Darling had been so spectacular and obviously the riding the hot goalie is a time-honored tradition in the NHL. So you can make a case for that, but I think slow and steady wins the race, and I think Quenneville saw Crawford as a guy who'd been there, done that, worn the T-shirt. He wanted him for game 2. What was more interesting to me about that game, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, Darling was the most interesting element, but what was also interesting was the fact that, and I actually asked this question to Peter Laviolette today, like, what do you tell your team, because they played really, really well. Yeah. Like, they had great number of scoring chances. They put a lot of pressure on the Blackhawks. They had a physical dominance, and even though they gave up a 3-goal lead, that did not feel like a 3-goal collapse.
Yeah.
We've all seen those. They're usually total collapses where the defense plays poorly and you could feel it coming, and it's just like, it wasn't like that. They sort of chipped away at it. A couple of 4-on-4, a lost stick, ill-advised penalty by the usually poised, maybe I put that in quotes, Shea Weber. Yeah. And suddenly it was 3-2, and even then it didn't feel necessarily like they're going to get the 3rd goal. Pekka Rinne, I looked for him to stop that shot by Taves on most times, and he didn't. So my question to Laviolette was like, what do you even say to him? Like, you come in, usually, you're dressing them down for poor defensive play and everything, and this is one of those cases where I think you go in and said, boys, we played a great game, we just didn't win. Sometimes that happens, and just do more of the same, keep the throttle down, and we'll go 1-1, because they looked like the better team for most of that game, except in that, where Darling outplayed Rinne.
What was his response to that? Did he agree with you?
Well, I mean, he sort of kind of got around it, and he basically said that you just have to go in, and he said players kind of know what happened at the game, so you just got to try to be honest with them, which I took to mean that he agreed with me, and he probably said pretty much what I did, that, hey, you put a lot of pressure on him, we had a lot of great scoring chances. Most times when we play like that, we're going to win. We were just unlucky last night. And, there's some certain things, like he did say, I did say we got to be better on the penalty kill, because the power play obviously allowed the Blackhawks to get back in. I think he's probably talking to Shea Weber saying, come on, you're better than that. Yeah. And because that was a retaliation penalty. Apparently, Shea must have left the room when Peter Laviolette was giving that initiate, don't retaliate speech. But it was just small things that caused that game. But the other final thing is, that was an outstanding hockey game.
I know.
Like it was just really a good game. And what's funny is I had said yesterday that I thought that the New York Islanders versus Washington Capitals was going to be the most exciting, intriguing hockey game. And I talked to someone who I trust who said, that game was really boring.
That was a terrible game.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I turned that game off and watched Montreal, Ottawa mostly. I mean, I had it in the small screen, but I was concentrating on that. Yep. Just one thing, because I agree with most of everything that Kevin said. The one thing, though, is that I think subconsciously Nashville was thinking, we're up 3-0, we've got Pekka Rinne, we're going to win this game, and that's dangerous because they didn't have a shot on goal for something like 14 minutes, according to the broadcast. And you can't sit back against a team like the Blackhawks, especially in the playoffs. And, optically, you're up 3-0 in the first period and you lose to the Blackhawks 4-3 in double overtime. To me, that's a dagger. That's a killer. I mean, they should have won that game. They needed to win that game. I'm not saying they can't come back in the series. They're only down 1-0. But if you're up 3-0, you've got to win that game, and they didn't.
Yeah, I don't think they felt like that. I think your point is well reasoned. I just don't think that when you were there live and you watched it, like, they didn't feel that way. Like, right. I was in the room today, and they weren't acting like a team that felt like someone had put a dagger in them. Like, they felt, hey, we showed them, we just got unlucky. And
you got to understand something about Nashville in this situation too, which is kind of unique to that team, is that even though they are the favorite or were had the home ice advantage, they know that no one thinks they're going to win this series. And it's different. Like if they're the definite favorite and go up 3-0 and then fall back, But when you look at the resounding number of people pick the Blackhawks in this year,
Yeah.
and I think that that fan base is not the kind of fan base that'll kill them for losing the 3-goal lead either. That it's not the way things fly there. It's very different. That's what I like about the place. That they really they continue to get up. They're very they're very active and very intense fans, but they love the game, and they don't that fan base. It sounded like it was just loud throughout, Kevin, especially as the game went on. I mean, I was wondering the kind of endurance that Predators fans would have, because that was a new situation for them. I was getting tweets from people in there saying, "Oh, I got to go to work tomorrow. This is so late. What's going on?" Things you would never see from a Philadelphia Flyers fan or something. People were just kind of freaking out.
Yeah, the Philadelphia fans, they pack a lunch just in anticipation.
Oh, I texted back. I'm like, these are the playoffs. Sleep is for the weak. Forget about it. You're not gonna. You can't do anything. That's ridiculous. You're at one of the best games. I mean, that series, and I wrote last night. I mean, to me, St. Louis and Minnesota can still top it, but that was as good as the Chicago-LA series last year. That game. That's what it felt like.
That would have fit nicely in that. One other thing that was worth mentioning is, I would estimate that there was only fewer than 500 Chicago fans in that game. When the last game they played, there were probably 3,000 in the regular season. Just because, they obviously made a concerted effort, as most teams are, to keep them out. Yeah. And that's a triumph for Nashville. Because I think it just kind of shows that the days when they needed the visiting team's fans to come and fill their building for them are gone. And it's really now, like I talked to Shea Weber about this, and he agreed. Like, the expectations are changed. The mood when they used to make the playoffs was celebratory, like they had really accomplished something.
Right.
They had gotten the prize, they were in the playoffs, and then whatever happens after that was just gravy over the biscuits. Yeah. And now there's high expectations. Like if the boys don't do something, I think the folks there, will be calling for changes to be made. They're on the radio. There's discussion about this team should be, it should move on. So it'll be interesting. And the other thing I want to bring up is, and I actually talked to the team president about this. They are trying to establish a tradition of the fans singing the anthem, which is sort of unusual when you think about, where they have so many great vocalists in Nashville. But anyway, I mean, the mayor came out and introduced it, and it started out slow, but boy, it was pretty strong. It wasn't Vancouver yet, where they sound like the Mormon Tabernacle Choir in Vancouver. It's so good. Yeah. They look like in Vancouver. It's so good that it just feels like it's been rehearsed for weeks.
Yeah, no, it does. It felt that way in Edmonton too. I remember that whole down run. Yeah, it was the same kind of thing.
And the other thing I always think about too, and most of us, not Eklund, who actually was in a band, but most of us sing terribly, but when we're all together, we sing okay.
Yeah. That when you put it all together, it does correct.
Yeah. But anyway, I thought it was interesting.
I like that tradition too. I heard them doing that, and I noticed. I was talking to my wife at the time, and I said, "Yeah, there must be," because I didn't see the beginning. I came in midway through the anthem. I'm like, "Oh, they're singing by themselves. That's really kind of cool." And then I thought, but they had the organ going in the background to keep them together, which was kind of funny. I said, what I really would rather, what's great about the other ones is that it's just a cappella. There is nothing else going on, right? So I think they got to lose the organ. They got to just let their fans go for it.
Yeah, just let them go. Yeah, but. That organist, Crazy, what is it? You should know this. Crazy.
I don't know.
Neil? Crazy? No, it's not Neil. I should know his name, but I don't. But anyway, the final thing is, though, and this is why I tell fans, if you need to go to experience the Nashville game experience. Between periods, I can't remember which of the many former Kansas vocalists was actually there, but he sang "Wayward Son," and it was just fantastic. And I was talking to the president about it, and he brought up. He says, "They say it in hockey." This is such a great quote. they say in hockey that sometimes you go to the game and a fight breaks out, or sometimes you go to the fights and the hockey breaks out. He says in Nashville we say sometimes you go to the game and a concert breaks out because they have that live entertainment, and I mean it was just fantastic. There was 18 minutes between periods, and I looked up and they sang 3 or 4 hits, and it was just terrific.
They're awesome. I mean, and they have that stage for those you don't know.
All the time.
Stage. They have a stage above. It's behind one of the goals, and it's just it's elevated, and it's always there. And sometimes they have people on there. This is where
I didn't write a single word between periods, and usually that's when I'm writing my story.
That is hilarious. I love that. No, that's awesome. Yeah, that was. I mean. Oh, I can't wait. I mean, it's just one of those things. The game was crazy intense. My family was into it. My family, they've taken on the Predators. We took them all to Nashville this year, so they've become our team here. So they're all kind of fired up about it. It was such a good game. We're gonna skip over the. We talked a little bit about Vancouver and the Islanders in Washington, but we have to get to all of our predictions, and we're gonna have 20 minutes to go, so we're gonna do this in rapid fire a little bit. Vancouver Calgary game. It was what you'd expect. To me, it was what you'd expect from that series. I thought it was exactly how I would have scripted the game to go, and down to the fact that Calgary again found a way to win.
Yeah.
And that's what we talked about yesterday. They just find ways, and Vancouver looked really good too. I mean, this was definitely Hiller was a star in that game, for sure. But Calgary, and Johnny Gaudreau did not look like he was playing in his first playoff game. He was completely all over the place. There was one moment with about 2 minutes left where Gaudreau comes down on a 2-on-1. That was like where my mind switched to what we were talking about yesterday. Where this is the Patrick Kane goal. How many Patrick Kane 2-on-1 goals have we seen to win? There was one last night that Rennie saved, right? That was like when Patrick Kane got that 2-on-1 last night. I was like, but it's over, it's done,
And I think Gaudreau passed to Joe Colburn, which was.
No, he took a shot. He took a shot on that one.
Okay, it was a different one then.
The one I saw, he took a shot.
Well, the only thing I have about this game is the fact that, Calgary comes back in the third period like they normally do, but Sam Bennett, who had not played, I think he played one regular season game, he gets the assist on the game-winning goal, and Hartley is using him in like all scenarios. And this is a 19-year-old kid, and in the playoffs, he's depending on him and giving him significant ice time. I mean.
Well, this is what's great about Calgary. They can do that. Who cares? They shouldn't be there. No one expects them to be there, and they might as well give their guys experience and do this. And they could win around in the playoffs. It's nuts.
Yeah, they're the team really that's playing with house money.
No, they are. There's no question about it. Yeah, I mean I couldn't agree more. Well, let's get on to tonight. Okay, so first off, we're going to start with what I think is the most interesting of tonight, and it's the Blues and the Wild. I really feel that you can throw the Hawks, Predators, Blues, and Wild into a hat and take any one of them out of there, and say that team's going to win the Stanley Cup. To me, those 4 teams are completely the same. There's no, and as good as last night's game was, tonight's game could be every bit that good. Although I don't, I think there's more intrigue to the difference in styles between the Predators and Blackhawks that make it more interesting. Where the Blues and Wild play a very similar style, so I think you'll see a tough. I mean, this is going to be an incredible game. What are your thoughts on this one, Kev?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota wins this first game, and I'm taking St. Louis to win it, but I think it's going to be a lengthy series, and I'm so bullish on Minnesota and how they play, and I think everybody's going to be torqued up, and it's going to be exciting. But I think who knows? Minnesota may draw first blood on this, and but I still think, as I said before, when you size up all of the categories, as good as Minnesota's been, and they statistically have been the best team since either mid-January or early February. The Blues are better at everything, just a little bit, but better at everything. Yeah. And I think that's the key, is that they just have it all going. But the big question will be in net. I did a St. Louis radio show, and it's pretty clear that the fans have a definite opinion on this based on what I'm hearing. They wanted to see Elliott. In there, so
which is surprising, because in general fans go the opposite direction of that. In general, fans. I thought the same thing. In general, fans go for the guy who's never played in the playoffs before. They want to see the guy who's been. And that's what I was surprised by that.
Yeah, but it's that's a very unscientific poll. Like
Sure.
as we all know from reading comments on the bottom of stories, is that nobody ever agrees on anything. In sports.
Of course,
So,
that's for sure. So you've got the Blues in this series, and how many games?
I think it's a 7-game series, and I think it's going to be an exceptional series. And I agree. I think you're right on the mark. I think both of those teams are capable of winning the Stanley Cup, and if the Wild win this series, they've just eliminated a very, very dangerous team. So anything is possible. This is really a pick'em series that I just have a feeling that St. Louis is going to win.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm glad about is that St. Louis is healthy going into the playoffs. Last year, I mean, you could have used it as an excuse that they had all those injuries, and that was the reason why they lost to Chicago. But they're coming in, they got a lot more depth than they did last year. That Tarasenko, Laterra, Jaden Schwartz line gives them a lot of depth and takes a lot of heat off of guys like Backes and Oshie. To me, I think it comes down to goaltending. And when Devin Dubnyk is 27-9-2, since they made the trade for him around the All-Star break, and and Hitchcock is switching from Elliott to Jake Allen at the 11th hour. To me, that gives the advantage in goal to Minnesota. Now, if Dubnyk has an Edmonton Oilers flashback and plays like he did back then I think St. Louis wins the series. But I agree it's going to go 7 games, but I think the Wild are going to win it.
See, and I think you hit on it. Dubnyk, this is a new season. And sometimes with goalies, you just don't know what happens in the new season.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the weird thing about this whole thing. That's like I saw that with Hammond. It's until we see one game. If Dubnyk comes out tonight and is just perfectly fine, everything's the same, and he stones them, then Minnesota's going to win the series. But I wonder.
This is when I'm required legally to bring out my Ed Belfour comparison.
Okay.
People said he was never going to be a playoff goalie, that he had too many failures, and then of course, and then he won, and then he was Hall of Famer.
Right.
And,
right.
He was the same goalie, but he'll never win. He's terrible. You can't win with him. And then he wins, and now he's Hall of Famer.
Fair enough.
Basically what I'm saying is we just don't know. Maybe Dubnyk will be great, maybe he won't. But he certainly statistically, right now, you got to give the edge in net to Minnesota because Dubnyk has just been phenomenal.
Yeah. I said in my blog that I would pick Minnesota to beat any other team in the NHL in a 7-game series but the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah.
And I really feel that way.
There's logic to that.
But I think St. Louis in 7. I'm not going to go quite where I went to Nashville and Chicago, where I said Nashville was going to win in 9 games last night. And I said that before the game started, but I said because when you add up all the overtimes, they're going to play 9 games in this series, and so far I'm on track for that. But yeah, I think it's 7-7. So let's move to the other. The most interesting series of all is the Winnipeg Jets and the Anaheim Ducks. Oh, but before I do that, we have to do the Owen method because we got so many people who love that yesterday. The Blues versus the Wild. 2 very ambiguous mascots. All right. So I'm going to go with this. I'm going to say the Wild. I'm going to go with the music theme because the Blues are obviously a musical thing. So I'm going to throw Louis Armstrong into the pit to represent the Blues. Is that the relatively no? Who would you give me a Blues person I can throw in there, Mike?
Charlie Parker.
All right, let's go Parker. Charlie Parker, right? And I guess even more jazzy. So anyway, Charlie Parker's into the pit, and then on the Wild side, I'm throwing in the Violent Femmes, who wrote the song. Blister in the Sky, Let Me Go Wild, right? So it's the Violent Femmes versus Charlie Parker. I have a tough time thinking Charlie Parker comes out of that pit alive. And if he does come out of that pit alive, he's very happy. So either way, but the Femmes would have convinced them that they were going to win. So this goes to the Wild in terms of the Owen factor. All right, so now the Ducks and the Jets. This to me is, like I said, the most difficult series to predict. I think the most intriguing series, and the series that could go any which way but lose. On either team could sweep, either team could go 7 games. I have no idea. And I'll go first on this one. I think the Ducks. The thing that is not fair is everyone keeps saying the Ducks won all these 1-goal games. Well, you know what? That's pretty hard to do, and you can sit there and you can hold that against them. But at the same time, you should also give them some credit for winning all these 1-goal games. I mean, it's not it doesn't look good in their goals for goals against category, but they did find ways to win a lot of one-goal games. So that is something that you could give credit for. The Jets, on the other hand, I think this is a bad matchup for the Ducks. I do. At the end of the day, I really feel like the Jets do what the Ducks hate, which is play a lot like the Kings. And the Jets come in, and the one thing about the Ducks defense and the Hawks defense that I've always felt, and I've been told this by other, I'm not going to take credit for this comment because I was told this by a couple scouts. One I really respect, who is a ex-defenseman who is a Detroit Red Wings scout. He used to play for the Flyers. That's all I'll put. But anyway, no, that he says that the Hawks and the Ducks hate the defense hate to turn their backs. That these are two defensive groups that hate to turn their backs. They hate to go back for the puck. You throw the puck in there, they hate to go back for it. That the Hawks will turn it over, the Ducks will turn it over, and as good as their defense is, they hate to turn their backs. The Winnipeg Jets love to make defensemen turn their backs. They play a dump and chase game. They throw it in there. The Ducks are going to have to turn their backs. I think the Jets are taking this, and I actually think the Jets could find themselves in the conference finals, which would be an incredible story. Because the winner of this plays the winner of Vancouver, Calgary. So there you go. Kevin?
Yeah, I'm selling on that. And they're my adopted team. I like the Jets. I've enjoyed their rise. I really like the trade that Shoveldayoff made, that first line with Wheeler and Ladd and Brian Little. But the Ducks have Getzlaf and Kessler, and they're deep up front, and they really improved their defense with Wisniewski, who's just a really gritty competitor. Not to
interrupt you, but they got him to do exactly what I'm saying that they don't like to do, because he is a player who will do that, right? So that's a perfect defenseman for them to pick up at the trade deadline for that reason. I do agree with you.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I think Anaheim is for real, you got to pay them some respect, and they're just a deeper team right now than Winnipeg. I like Winnipeg, and certainly they're capable of an upset because this is the NHL. But I think this is one of those cases where if you play 10 series, the Jets might only win 2 of them, and 8 would go to the Ducks. There's potential there, but I just think the Ducks are better.
Mike?
I'm going for the upset here. I mean, the one matchup that would scare me from the point of the Jets is Getzlaf and Kessler as the 1-2 against Brian Little and Mark Scheifele. I mean, you got 2 big-bodied centers there with a lot of experience up against. Little is a smaller center, not a midget, but a smaller center, and Scheifele is inexperienced. So, I mean, that could be a potential mismatch, but I think that's counterbalanced by Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg's got a much better defense with Byfuglien, with Myers, and with Trouba. I think they blow away Anaheim's defense. And then it comes down to goaltending, and there's both question marks there. Pavlik has been good the last couple months, but everybody thought he was a question mark.
He's been amazing the last couple of months, Mike.
Been amazing, yeah. And Frederik Andersen, I mean, it's sort of they're going with him. I'm surprised if Gibson isn't hurt that they didn't go with Gibson.
He is hurt.
Yeah, so I mean they have to go with Andersen. So I mean I'm picking the Jets in 7 games.
All right, so the Owen.
They've become a real trendy pick too. The Jets this time. They're sort of the designer pick.
Yeah, they have, and that's why I'm surprised. You have adopted them. You're the only one who's not going with them, and you are not trendy.
But listen though, it's and anybody who played Little League baseball knows how this works. When a dad coaches his own son, it goes 2 different ways. Most people think that that the son's going to he's going to pitch every game, he's going to get to play what he wants. But generally, what happens is you're harder on them.
Right.
You're harder on them.
Very true.
I'm harder on my Jets.
I like it. I like it. I think that's good. So
I got the Little League approach.
Use the Owen method on this one. A duck is a duck. If it smells like a duck and looks like a duck and acts like a duck, it's a duck.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. A duck fouls up jet engines.
Oh, that's a really good point. I didn't even think of.
Yeah,
ducks. That's right. But that's more geese, isn't it? I mean, ducks. How high do ducks actually fly?
I think if a duck got in an engine, it would have the same impact as if a goose is in there.
It fouls up the engine, Kevin, but it's made into pate. So the jet.
Right. At the end of the day, the duck's not getting out of the pit.
Listen, so that maybe the duck is dead, but the airliner and that ain't
crashed it. So the Jets make it out of this series, but they're crashed up, mumbled up. But see, I was going to go with the Jets being an Army thing, because I know the Winnipeg Jets, what they went with, or a military thing, because that's what they went with in Winnipeg, as opposed to the Golden Jet from the past. They went with the military thing. So I was going to put a Canadian military man in there with a duck. And I think that would be a pretty quick battle. So
Okay. Well, yeah, no, it would be.
we're going there. We're going. So this is the Winnipeg Jets come out of this in a big way. By the way, last night we saw how tough it is for a tiger to actually take down an Indian. Anyway, because that tiger had that Indian in the corner bloodied, and that Indian still, Native American Indians rock. They can still beat their way out of it.
As it turned out, I think that that Black Hawk had a carbine rifle instead of a knife.
That he had stolen from someone in the the exhibition.
He traded some wampum and 2 blankets for a carbine. So.
Oh my gosh, you're right. All right, so the final series then would be.
Nope, we got 2 series.
Oh my gosh, we got to go fast. Tampa and right. Sorry, of course we have 2 series. Let's start with Tampa and
Detroit.
Detroit. I'm so
the
sorry.
Red Wings.
Like, my mind just I got too stuck on the duck thing. All right, Tampa and Detroit. Kevin, why don't you start this one off for us?
Well, the Tampa Bay team is a very strong team, and they have it all going. Their offense is tops in the NHL. A very dangerous offense. Always a danger to get 3, 4, 5 goals in a game. Bishop, giant goalie. Takes away the upper corners. Probably didn't play as well as he did last season, but still a guy that can make a difference in a game, and their defense is improved. Strawman's just become a force in Tampa Bay. He was really good last year, but they seem to sort of tout him, and they build him up as being more valuable than the Rangers did. And Hedman, I think, would have been a Norris Trophy candidate had he not gotten injured at some point. So I think they're much better than the Red Wings right now. I think the Red Wings, though, are good enough to post an upset, and this is one of those 3 out of 10 situations. But the majority of the time, the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win this series. So I'm going with them in 6 games. I think the Lightning are just too strong for the Red Wings.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think Detroit can score with Tampa. I just don't think they can stop Tampa. They're the fastest team in the league. They scored the most goals at any playoff team, 262 goals. And, Stamkos and Tyler Johnson as the top 2 centers. I think, Mrazek playing in goal instead of Jimmy Howard, I mean, that just shows that, I don't know if it shows desperation. I think it just shows that Jimmy Howard hasn't been up to it, and they're going to roll the dice and go with Mrazek, who I think has shown a bit of ability, and I think it could be their future goaltender. But I think Tampa's a stronger team. I think they have the hunger after losing last year to the Canadians and losing Stamkos to that injury and Bishop getting hurt. So I think they're going to go through Detroit rather quickly. I picked the Lightning in 5.
Yeah, I got the Lightning in 6 too, but I do think this is the most intriguing coaching matchup of the playoffs. I love both of these coaches. And it's a really cool old school, new school. I mean, Babcock is new school as well, but it's really a cool matchup. I think the Mrazek thing is brilliant. I think that is the one chance the Red Wings have in this thing, is that they put a guy that the league and the Lightning haven't seen as much as they've seen Jimmy Howard, and that can play into it. I think it's going to come down to also special teams too. I think that the Red Wings are going to have to make special teams work for them, and they're going to have to stop Tampa, or else they're going to have big problems in this one. So, but I do have Tampa in 6. Now, the Red Wings got their name in a really interesting way, as you know, Kevin. They were originally they were the Victoria Cougars of the Western Hockey League. So a Cougar would have been a better bet for them than a cyclist, because they were named after a bicycling club, which was a Montreal, right? Because this is how I understand it, at least. I might be botching this up.